Hi, and welcome back for another daily dose of anime recaps. In this episode, we shall be covering the first 4 episodes of the anime Saekano, How to Raise a Boring Girlfriend. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. This is a story about an otaku boy who was inspired to create a dating sim game after watching a girl standing on a hilltop in her white dress. He works hard to make his dream come true. However, the real world isn't as easy as wishing for anything. As he struggles through his game-making process, he gathers girls in his circle who start a harem around him, despite his devotion only to 2D girls. Before we begin, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and hit the bell button so you never miss an update from us. Aki Tomoya is obsessed with anime and manga and goes to Toyogasaki Private Academy, where it is the beginning of the new academic year. A blonde, half-Japanese girl named Sawamura finds her assigned classroom and is looking at the board to find out who her other classmates are. Her appearance draws other students to her, making her one of the school's most popular girls. Suddenly, her cheery face changes when she looks at Kasumigaoka Utaha, another famous girl who is also a successful scenario writer entering the school. Aki is greeted by one of his friends in class, but he is busy and tells him off. Aki's friend thinks Aki is reviewing anime and games for his website, but Aki explains that he uploads every piece of information on his website very soon. This way, anyone can enjoy anime and game-related useful news. He then reveals that he is going to start the most important mission of his otaku life. Before he finishes, his friend notices Sawamura from the window and praises her artistry. Aki is not interested and says 2D girls are the only ones he cares about. Suddenly, it is time for the first-year students to open their school year with a ceremony, and Aki watches Sawamura get a novel from her locker. He realizes that the novel is a limited edition that he had ordered for her. When Aki asks her to be grateful to him, she cuts him off and tells him not to speak to her at school. As they both brag about favoring each other, Aki wants to talk about something. He shows Sawamura a game he plans to create called the Ultimate Dating Sim and asks her to do illustrations for his game. She asks why he suddenly wants to create the game, and he tells her about his encounter with a one-piece white suit-wearing girl on a hill that inspired him to make the game. Sawamura thinks that he loves the girl and suggests asking her out instead. Aki says he doesn't want a 3D girl relationship and then praises her illustrations and wants her to work for him. As he tries to convince her nonstop, she throws the project proposal away, saying it's useless. Aki begs for the last time and asks her to come to the AV room after school. Later in the opening ceremony, the school announces Kasumigaoka Utaha as the top student for 2 years, but she is asleep in her chair. Aki's friend praises Sawamura and Kasumigaoka and loses track of how beautiful they are. Aki knows both girls a bit too well and tells his friend not to judge girls solely by looks. Aki finds Kasumigaoka reading a book during a lunch on the school roof. He offers her lunch, but she knows he needs a favor. He shows her his project proposal to get advice and asks her to join his circle as a scenario writer. However, she writes him off and says the project proposal is trash, giving him a 0 score and making him suffer in a peculiar way. She continues the attack and calls the proposal copied. She then tries to leave, saying she doesn't have time for his whimsical games, when Aki stresses that he always wanted to make a game and it is his dream to design his dream game using her talent as a scenario writer. However, she excuses herself by saying she's busy and can't join him. Aki then throws his last move, seeking one last chance, and asks her to meet him in the AV room after school. He rewrites the proposal, excited to change Sawamura and Kasumigaoka's mind when a girl meets him in the hallway and conveys a request for his help with equipment. She thanks him for picking her hat over spring break, which Aki doesn't understand. However, as soon as she leaves, he remembers her to be the same girl who inspired him to create his dream game. Meanwhile, Sawamura enters the AV room without looking into the room and says she doesn't want Aki to wait for her. Suddenly, she finds out that the AV room is empty except for Kasumigaoka, her rival she can't stand. Kasumigaoka teases Sawamura, which causes them to argue. Aki approaches the girl in the hallway and calls her by mispronouncing her name. She gives an awkward smile, then introduces herself as Katao Megumi. Aki takes her out for dinner and notices how cute she is. He starts praising her, but Katao has boring answers and won't deviate from them and thinks of herself as non-existent. Aki learns that she's been his classmate for a long time, but now, after looking at her, he thinks she's cute. He asks her about her white hat, to which she replies that she gave it to her cousin. This causes Aki a deep dilemma, and as he recovers from that, he praises her good memory for remembering a simple otaku like him. But Katao reveals that he's the third school famous person due to his festival contributions. Aki then comes to the main point and starts discussing her sense of individuality, which she wonders why it is a problem for him. He then tells her that he's making a dating sim game, and she's the main heroine, which surprises her. As they talk, Katao takes literal meanings from the conversation and teases Aki without knowing. Suddenly, Sawamura and Kasumi Gaoka show up outside the cafe and are giving Aki a dagger gaze because he was supposed to meet them in the AV room. Katao asks Aki about Kasumi Gaoka and Sawamura, and Aki introduces Sawamura, the illustrator, and Kasumi Gaoka, the scenario writer, as her top game creation circle members. However, Kasumi Gaoka suddenly screws her heel on top of Aki's foot and takes out her frustration by making her wait in the AV room. Aki engulfs the pain and introduces Katao as the main heroine of his game. Sawamura gets jealous and glares at Katao, who complains to Aki about the stare. He says Sawamura is nearsighted, which she instantly denies. He reveals Sawamura's identity and says that she acts innocent at school, but is different outside. Sawamura kicks him for talking about her as if he knew her. As they argue, Sawamura repeatedly kicks him under the table. Soon, Kasumi Gaoka argues with Sawamura about Aki, and then they start kicking each other under the table. Aki tells them to stop and shows them his proposal, which they still don't value. They gang up on him and tell him to give up on the game, but he isn't willing to do so and is determined to write the project proposal as many times as it takes. He boasts about transforming Katao into a heroine when they suddenly notice that she has vanished. The next day, Aki waits for Katao to meet her on the same hill, but she beats Aki's expectations by showing up in her normal clothes instead of the white dress. Aki asks her for her opinion about the location, but Katao is boring, so she answers off-topic to ease Aki's mind. He reminds her that this is where they first met, but Katao says that their first meeting was at the school's opening ceremony. After suffering from her literal abuse, he asks her if she realizes the importance of their meeting that day, and she again replies, ignoring Aki's context completely. He draws questions to make her understand, but Katao cannot decipher them. When they reach Aki's home, his room confirms Aki's otaku status. Aki expects Katao to be adorably clumsy, but she sits in front of him, failing his expectations once again. He tells her that he'll teach her about 2D heroine qualities, and that soon she'll be perfect. He brings out a dating game for her, but her choices make him crazy and force him to inject gaming knowledge into her simple brain. He lectures her on 2D girls' design and their importance. At the end of the game, Aki starts crying and reveals all the spoilers to her. After the game, he asks her how it was, to which she replies nicely, which makes him hopeful that she's learning. However, soon she gets back to her usual literal senses and Aki's brain endurance test starts. While lecturing her, he suddenly remembers Sawamura and Kasumi Gaoka's words and realizes he is the one who is at fault, thanking Katao for making him realize his mistakes. Katao wants to leave, but he shows her the sequel of the game they played and begs her to stay so he can transform her into what he wants. After some days, Aki talks to Katao about his project proposal and that his deadline is approaching at the end of the Golden Weekend. Katao thinks there are a few days left, but Aki says he has many more hours to work with. He asks her for another sleepover to polish her skills as a heroine, but she says she's on a family trip to Hokkaido and won't return before the Golden Weekend. Left with a few days to write the project proposal, he starts sealing off his daily otaku distractions. However, not a single minute passes and he tears the seal on the light novel series and plans to read a novel before starting his gruesome project proposal. He ends up reading the series all day and realizes he's screwed up. Suddenly, he finds Sawamura in her room working on doujinshi. He asks her why she's in his room, and she says her parents had important guests at her home, so she came over to avoid distractions. As they start working, Sawamura asks how far he's gotten on the project proposal. He says he has 3 days left, but Sawamura is perceptive enough to realize there's no progress. She tells him to give up on creating the game, but Aki isn't ready to accept that as he thinks he can be a creator just like her one day. As they continue their conversation, she accidentally reveals that she was worrying for nothing, which makes Aki suddenly catch on to her real motive for visiting him, to motivate him. Suddenly, Aki hears a doorbell and Sawamura sees Kasumi Gaoka outside the window. Kasumi Gaoka enters Aki's room and he removes all evidence of another person, while Sawamura hides in the closet. When she asks about his progress on the project proposal, he admits it's not going well, which makes her praise him for honesty and call him a man. She decides to stop him from creating the game, saying his life before was not painful. She describes the creator's woes, from drying up skills to haters, but Aki still decides to cling to creating the game but admits he doesn't know how to propose the project. However, he's going to write one anyway that will gain her approval. Before she leaves, she advises him to involve all the circle members to figure out what kind of game he wants to create and leaves. However, returns to say Sawamura's bike should have been hidden to hide her presence and then really leaves. Sawamura suddenly floods out of the closet and goes home complaining about Kasumi Gaoka. Later at night, Aki tells Katao, who asks him what kind of experience he had with her up until now. He says his time with her was fun, but she should be more overbearing and stand out. She hangs up the call by saying she'll work out a solution. Aki thinks about the proposal, but nothing comes to mind. Soon, he is again distracted and another day passes. The next day, half of the day passes without any progress again, and goes to the hill where he met Katao, but he doesn't get any ideas. Soon he considers giving up and says it all began here and will end here. Just then, he sees the white hat flowing in front of him, and he also sees Katao standing on the hilltop in her white one-piece dress walking towards him. She puts the white hat on Aki and acts like a 2D girl whom he envisions. She reveals that she returned from Hokkaido 3 days ago and took Sawamura and Kasumi Gaoka's help to redesign her dress and improve her speech and performance, so she can play the hill moments once more to contribute to the circle and give him inspiration for the game. Aki is happy and drags her to come up with the best project proposal despite her complaining and promises to release her at 6 a.m. The next day, Kasumi Gaoka tells her editor, who wants her to be more punctual about her deadlines, and asks her for an interview. Kasumi Gaoka sarcastically rejects the interview by saying she has deadlines to meet, but her editor tells her an interview is already scheduled in the monthly magazine to reveal her new series and makes her believe that she has a surprise that will make her happy. Aki and Katao have another meeting on a train where she tells him she has finished the light novel she borrowed from him. This makes Aki proud of her, as his eyes wet with tears. They marvel at Kasumi Gaoka's success as a writer and her top school grades. This makes Aki show appreciation for Kasumi Gaoka's work and tells Katao she's inspired him as a creator. Kasumi Gaoka goes to work and finds Aki at the interview table, who is excited to learn about Kasumi Gaoka's new release. Kasumi objects to having an interview with Aki, but he tells her that her assignment hired him through the website. Kasumi looks at her editor, who tells her that she's shy and uncooperative with strangers, so she hired someone she knows. Kasumi gets up and decides to leave, but Aki stops her and says he'll be excited to learn about her new release, so he couldn't say no to the job. Aki's words touch her heart and she agrees to the interview. He begins by mentioning Kasumi's 500,000 debut series sales, then asks about the rumors of her long-awaited series, which she confirms. He asks more questions about the characters and plot, which makes her sleepy. Aki buys refreshments for her at his own expense to keep her awake for the interview. When Aki asks about her enthusiasm for the next series, she reveals her first release was successful only because of him. Kasumi's editor reveals that the first release was quickly sold after being featured on Aki's website. Aki finds the interview meaningless as the spotlight is shifted from his favorite writer to him. Aki and Kasumi suddenly become low-spirited, but Aki once again asks her to give the readers an honest answer, showing her engagement with them. She surprises him with unexpected responses, then gradually satisfies him. She then accepts Aki's proposal out of the blue and tells him she's also going to work for a new client, which is him. Aki is surprised and happy and holds her hand, saying he won't let her down. The next day, Sawamura takes a breather outside the AV room and once again starts talking without looking inside the room. Kasumi insults Sawamura by throwing an insulting argument, revealing her tsundere character. Sawamura is shocked to see Kasumi and is teased by Kasumi more, which makes her lose her temper and beats Aki with her twin nails. As the two girls calm down, Aki writes down the game's schedule and plans to finish it by December for Winter Comic Market. Both girls deny the schedule at once because of their busy schedules, and Kasumi alters the schedule to her liking. Sawamura objects to the changes made by Kasumi and changes them to benefit her. This leads both girls to fight and argue over the schedule and end up drawing weird marks on each other's faces. As Aki calms them down, he asks how he can help. Sawamura asks for snacks, while Kasumi requests a sweet bun and coffee-flavored milk. This makes Aki feel a bit out of place, as he thinks he is the producer and director of the circle. Both girls then suggest he take their jobs, which makes him quietly know his place and buy snacks for them without complaining. Kasumi stops him and tells him that he needs to take care of the most vital thing, fundraising. She says that DVD pressing, packaging, painting, and so on can cost hundreds of thousands to 1,000,000 yen. Aki turns blue, thinking it's impossible to earn 1,000,000 yen, but later decides to take care of the funds himself anyway. He asks Sawamura to draw serious Moe artwork, and Kasumi to write a sad scenario. This leads to the question of what Kitao will do, as she asks from a distant chair. And Aki tells her to become the heroine he wants her to be. The next morning, Aki is a newspaper delivery boy and also works part-time jobs to gather funds for his games. As he is busy working at a cafe, Kitao enters a cafe with a boy and breaks Aki's heart. The next day, he complains about her cousin and asks her to only focus on the guys playing the game she'll be the heroine in.